one other thought I just had today, I was thinking about the battery issue, because people sometimes have difficulty thinking, well, look, why can't we just make a bunch of batteries? And how much battery do you really need? And just to get a little bit of the way there, think about somebody who owns a Tesla. And actually, maybe we'll jump to Steffen's next story next, because I know you want to talk about Tesla, but here's my perspective on it. These battery cars, sometimes called electric cars, are, they're considerably more expensive than gasoline cars. And a huge amount of that expense is the cost of the battery. So you take a Tesla, I don't know what the current replacement costs for the battery of a Model S are, but at one point they were around $36,000 to get a replacement. So you just think for the entire, that just shows how expensive this particular thing is. But now imagine that you live in a place where, let's say you live in Germany, and at any given point, let's say, Steffen, what's a realistic amount of time, like with solar and wind in Germany, where they can be contributing less than 5% of capacity?
So there have been periods that went on over a week, like maybe 10 days. That doesn't happen every year, but
it could happen, right? So you have 10 days. Now imagine you've got a Tesla, and basically the solar and wind, you're trying to rely on those exclusively, and you can basically count on zero from the solar and wind over a 10-day period. So now you don't just have the battery you have to pay for in your Tesla, but then you have the battery that you're paying for to provide life support to the battery in your Tesla, which then if you're driving, let's say you were driving half a load a day, you'd need 5 batteries worth to get the Tesla to work. And that's just for a consumer driving an automobile. So you need like 5 backup Tesla batteries in your home to deal with this situation. And this is just a consumer use. Imagine industrial things. So that just gives a sense of the amount. We think of batteries today in the context of using continuous, reliable fuel sources that can charge the batteries at a moment's notice. But then when you lack that, you have to think of, oh no, the battery has to be the fuel source. And that is a complete game changer in a very negative way, given the current state of batteries. The best batteries we have are natural batteries, in the sense of nature has stored for us large amounts of energy in the form of hydrocarbons for fossil fuels, or in the atomic structure of uranium or thorium. That's the ultimate battery. And for us to try to recreate that is something that we're just not anywhere near good at. We're not very good at compared to what would be required to use these intermittent fuel sources. So since I talked about Tesla, Steffen, I know you had another story. Your second story was about Tesla, right? So what's going on there?
Yeah, so Tesla CEO Elon Musk has announced that Tesla is cutting back 7% of the workforce and struggling to stay profitable in the first quarter of this year. And this came a bit as a surprise, because the Model 3 that has been recently released is supposed to, give the company the final breakthrough into the mass market, and then, financial things will rapidly improve. And Musk in particular mentioned the phase out of the federal tax credit, which amounted to $7,500 per car last year, and is now reduced to half of that. And over the next 6 months will again be reduced until it's phased out. And the least expensive version of the Model 3 is $44,000 for a middle-class sedan type of car. And I've dug a little deeper into the cost comparison between gasoline and electric vehicles. And so the Kia Soul has 2 variants, one electric and one gasoline powered. And so the difference in cost is that the electric vehicle costs about $35,000, and the gasoline version of comparable in comparison costs about $19,000. So that's almost twice the price for the electric vehicle. And then you have some additional disadvantages. So the range for the electric vehicle is about 100 miles under realistic conditions versus about 400 miles for the gasoline car. although the 22 model of the electric version promises to increase it somewhat. And then you have, charging times are of course much longer than filling up the gas tank. And so it's easy to see that even with taxpayer-funded incentives of this size, this can be a hard sell to a lot of people. And so to me, this raises the questions, what the advantage of giving out taxpayer money to deploy these technologies like electric vehicles actually is, because there seemed to be some huge enthusiasm in terms of how quickly electric vehicles will be cost competitive and be able to quickly replace diesel and gasoline cars. And so my thoughts on this are that the basic chemistry of these batteries do not give this, what was coined like disruptive or exponential technological improvements. There were incremental improvements, and batteries are getting better, and that's a great thing. And it would be great to have like an electric vehicle alternative. But there are still barriers, and so it will take some time to be actually really competitive in terms of usability and also price, as it seems.
All right, so it's these things are. I feel in a weird position with some of these politically popular technologies, because normally my attitude toward any competitive technology or any alternative technology is goodwill and enthusiasm, because I want to think about, if they handle this and this and this could be really good. And certainly with battery cars, there are certain nice things about them, and there are also certain challenges that aren't as appealing that you would need to address. But unfortunately, right now, technologies in this space are being advocated as forced replacements for something that's already working really well. So the claims of them are not just things that I'll say, I hope for the best. It's they're saying, no, we're certain this is going to be great, and therefore we can compel you to use one of this type of vehicle because that's the right thing, and because don't worry, it's going to be safe. And thus we get into this realm where in general, we'd want to have positive feelings toward people, even who tend to be optimistic, as most entrepreneurs are. Most entrepreneurs are going to be over optimistic, but instead we really have to be the voice of reality, because they want to force their technologies on other people.